Well, hello there and welcome back to part 2 of building the world's greatest swing set. If this is your first time here and you haven't seen the first part of building this, there will be a link right up here and a link in the description below. There's also a paid set of highly detailed colored plans for this. If you guys would care to build that, I would highly recommend checking out that first video and then coming back here and watching this one. So let's finish this thing. In the first video, we had the main structure done, and now it's time to put up all the odds and ends. The decking, the rest of the railing, all the accessories, and the roof. Part 1 of this video series left off with installing the remaining joist on the upper levels of both the fort and the house towers. And now that we got a good base to put all our decking boards on, I cut decking boards to their proper length for both the tower and for the bridge, and then climbed up and fastened everything in place. For every joist underneath the deck boards, I added 2 screws. So for the longest deck boards, there was 10 screws for each board. This is how I like to go about cutting the notches in these boards without taking any measurements. Just line it up each way. There you go. No measurements taken for that. Turned out perfect. Now I just got to do it like 16 more times. Right now we are looking at the house side of the swing set, the side that has the stairs for the kids to climb up to and run to the other side, which is the fort side. I got the decking on as much as I can without getting stuck up there. Now I'm going to do the stairs. The stairs are laid out in the plans, measurements according to the plans, which are a 3D design, so they're much more accurate than actually what is going on out here. So I would highly encourage you to check the measurements of the plan against what you might have out there in your yard, because it could be a little bit different, and adjust accordingly. I'm going to start making the stair risers now. What I'm going to do is cut a 30-degree angle off the top first, and then I will measure these marks 1.5 in and 5.5 inches in and cut out this notch right here. Then we will measure from this point to this point and get our 56 3/16, cut that 30-degree angle right there. Ethan. Once I got the mounting notch cut out, I cut the stringer to its appropriate length and then marked out evenly where the stair treaders needed to go. These are updated in the plan so it is appropriate. And then using a square for the proper angle, I put a line across so that I could eyeball that angle when putting the stair treads in. I put the stringers on a flat surface, which happened to be the lower level of the house side tower, and pre-screwed the screws into place so that I could hold the treader at the proper angle and fasten everything in place. These screws are going into end grains, so I have ankle brackets in the plans, which I added off camera. I now have all the deck boards across the bridge and on both levels of the towers. So now I want to go ahead and get the railing of the bridge up there. I'm going to start with these longer 4x4s, which span between the deck and then go above so that the railing attaches to them. I'm going to get them in place first, and then we will structural screw the supports onto the bridge itself. These 4x4 railing sections are fastened quickly in place with 2.5-inch screws and then firmly in place with structural screws. Where you have a 2x6 to 4x4 joint, it is a 4-inch structural screw, and the 4x4 to 4x6 is a 6-inch structural screw. Mounting the middle post for the railing on the bridge was a little bit more tricky. I climbed up there and measured where I needed the post to go and pre-drilled my 6-inch structural screws. Used my largest speed square underneath my legs so that I had the post approximately square, and then felt for where I had it flat with the bridge truss on the bottom. Drove my first screw, made sure everything was square, and then drove everything home so it was nice and tight. There will be two 14-foot 2x4s in the list of lumber that you need, and these are for each side of the railing up on the bridge because they need to be just over 12 foot. These are 147 inches, so you have to cut down that 14-foot 2x4. The mission right now is to get the railings of the top and lower levels of the house side done, and these are the dimensions for that. And I measured just now, and I'm 66 3/4 and at the top of the 4x4s, so I'm pretty sure that I can manually spread them apart and cut using these measurements. We need to cut these out of 2x4 and then these sections out of 2x6, which is where the railing connects to in the bottom level. Once you have everything cut to length, measure up for the placement of the railing, check against the plans to make sure you have this measurement right, and then screw everything in place with 2.5-inch deck screws. That one measurement is actually the only measurement that you have to make because you can use the railing pieces to assemble everything else without having to take any measurements. The same setup goes for the fort side, except these vertical sections I'm holding here are 4x4 because there is a little bit more stress with swinging out onto the fireman pole and swinging across the climbing wall. These railing sections actually serve two purposes. They hold the fence in place and they act as a support for the swing diagonal supports. This video is sponsored by sawblade.com, whose circular blades I've been using for about 6 months now on all of my saws. There's one thing in particular I'd like to point out today, and that is that this exact saw blade has run through a handful of nails, and this is the same blade that I use to make all the cuts that you see in this video on this swing set, and the cut quality is still perfect. There's several reasons for that. The biggest reason is the carbide tips on these blades are higher quality. Sawblade.com buys such a large quantity of carbide that they're able to get it at a lower price, and they reciprocate that back to us by selling us these blades at a lower cost with the higher quality carbide. Visit sawblade.com for all your wood and metal cutting needs. I do want to make a note that it is a 6-inch structural screw into the 4x4s and a 4-inch through the railing 2x4 into the 4x4. So we are moving right along here. We're actually at a point now where it's time to put the tube slide on, and the tube slide has a deck height of 7 foot. So that's actually lower than the top platform and the bridge level. So we got to build a little platform that's right down here, going to stick out about 3 foot, and there's going to be 2 steps down into the platform for the tube slide. Built with the same methods as everything else, joist, deck boards, 4x4s. Let's put it up. I first assembled the rim joist sections of the tube slide attachment and then measured up on the 4x4s that are used as the post and then bolted the rim joist in place. And once we tipped up the tube slide attachment into place, we simply leveled everything out and then bolted it up against the railing sections of the fort side tower. This whole section looks a little bit different in the plans as I improved upon the design. The deck boards will actually go over the mounting board so you don't have to put this spacer in place. and I used a couple off-cut 2x4s to add some diagonal supports, offering a ton of rigidity to the tube slide attachment. There's a significant step down between the upper fort level and the tube slide attachment, so there's going to be a 2-step down, and this is a simple little box made with 2x6s and deck boards. A couple of notches in the deck board of this step allow it to tuck in very nicely between the fort and the tube slide attachment. And now it is time for some of the accessories. You probably noticed that the slide was on, but this is how you put it on. 3 screws, all done. The tube slide, not so much. Lots of screws, need extra hands, it's big and awkward, multiple pieces, but you can get it done. We chose to actually pre-drill everything as it showed in the instructions of the tube slide. I do want to show that I was using some drill bits to hold everything nice and square at the top. Once you get those done, assemble the entire tube slide on the ground and then lift it up into place. In the end, I suppose the assembly of this tube slide wasn't too bad, but you definitely are going to need a second or third pair of hands to help you out. Probably by design, the tube slide lines up very well with the mounting post, so the bracket to support the tube slide was able to bolt right on to the tube slide attachment post. And you can definitely be consoled that all the effort is 100% worth it. The kids absolutely love this slide. This is the setup for the swing. I'm using these heavy duty swing brackets that actually have like a little nylon bushing in it, and I'm attaching them with a 4-inch structural screw. These have the wax around the chain, heavy duty seat. Here's a close-up of those brackets. Heavy duty. I got these brackets and all the other slides and hardware at Amazon.com. I'll have links for all of that stuff in the paid set of plans if you guys would care to go purchase those. It helps out the channel a ton. And I will also have them in the description below if you guys just want to know what hardware I use to purchase that on your own. The measurements for the placement were a little bit tricky to figure out. I will have them in the plans, but if you guys are going to use less swings, or you would like more or less room on the sides by the post, more room between the swings, you'll have to go through that setup on your own.
You're getting up there.
We're going to be cutting down these 72-inch fence boards to use as the fencing to enclose the sides of the playground. So we got it down here on the first level already, and I'll show you the steps for adding it as we do the top. We got it on the house side and the fort side already. Goes up pretty quickly. The fence boards are going to be one of the areas that might vary a little bit between what you have and what the plans are calling for. It is best to start at the front corners of each of the towers and from the outside edges of the bridge, but really it's going to vary a little bit and you may have to cut some of the boards down. The biggest thing of note here is that we made ourselves a spacer that was on a handle so we could pinch it in place with each of the boards and screw everything down and then move on to the next one. And at this point you are done with the fort side, so you can use a sawzall to cut off the remaining extensions of 4x4. And now let's move on to the roof. First thing is cut your roof trusses to their appropriate length with the appropriate angle, and then move everything up to the top level of the house side, screw your trusses together, and then get a helping hand to put them into place. I used a 2.5-inch screw to hold everything in place, and then came back with a 4-inch structural screw and made sure everything was going nowhere. Once you get the trusses in place, grab your sawzall and cut off those remaining 4x4s. Cut your roofing boards, which are fence boards, to the proper length, and then pre-drill some screws so that you don't have to use a second hand up there, and screw everything into place, 4 screws per roof board. To add some support to the whole swing set, put a diagonal support on the bottom of the fort and the house side towers. And the last fun addition to this swing set is going to be a climbing wall. I debated for quite a while whether to go this route with a climbing wall or to go with the typical rock wall that you see on most swing sets. My reasoning for going with this climbing wall is it gives me more options for a fun pattern up the swing set, and then per suggestions from my brothers, it actually hurts your feet less. So this offers a little bit more options and a little bit less pain for the children, and less of a footprint on the swing set as it is straight up and down. In the appendix of the plans, you can print out these 4 different shapes and cut out the inside to make a stencil. I used some spray paint to quickly transfer that shape onto the wall, and then pre-drilled and cut it out with a jigsaw. To soften the edges of the cutouts and to prevent some splinters, I used a 1/4-inch roundover on a router and routed the inside and outside of each shape.
All done.
Very nice, huh? Well, there you are, guys. The world's greatest swing set is finished. The kids absolutely love it. Their friends absolutely love it. It's been hard to get them off of this thing since we built it, and we've only had it done for a short amount of time. Again, if you guys would like to build this, I do have a highly detailed colored set of plans for sale on my website. Any purchase you make helps out our website immensely. There's a link in the description below for those plans if you would care to purchase them. Thanks for coming along for this big build. I hope you enjoyed both videos. If you did, please consider subscribing, hitting that button right there, and hammering that thumbs up button, showing you that you appreciate the work that we put out there for you guys. I'm DIYTyler. You guys have a good one.